So hello everyone, welcome to Whole and Healthy Kitchen. My name is Brittany Shawley and today I'm doing a webinar on attitude in the kitchen. So I'm going to jam pack a lot of information into this 30 minutes for you. So I would suggest getting comfortable, grabbing a water, grabbing a tea, and maybe even grabbing a notebook so you can jot down what speaks to you the most so you can apply it in your daily life going forward. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to write them on the sidebar. I will most probably address them at the end for our last 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer. So feel free to ask anything, and here we go. So first and foremost, I wanted to start with sharing a little bit of a parable for you guys. So I want you to meet Sharon Lynn and her family. I definitely wanted to share this story in hopes that it speaks to you all in some way. So just listen in on the story and see if there's anything that relates to you and your experience. So first of all, we have Sharon Lynn, who is a mother of 2 young boys. She has a part-time job and endless work around the house, as well as a dog. Her husband, Dan, works long hours, so she is the one to typically make the meals, especially during the week and often on the weekends as well. Cooking for Sharon is seen as time-consuming, messy, boring, and therefore Sharon rarely cooks full meals. She chooses quick, cheap meals that she can grab from the grocery store or a fast food place. And they're often filled with high carbohydrates. They're processed food filled with fats and meat and dairy. Her husband contributes to this by bringing deep fried foods home like pizzas and unhealthy snacks to satisfy the nightly cravings. So both Sharon and her husband Dan were taught this way of eating from their own parents. Sharon's mom was a single mom and she did the best she could, but they ate out very often, and her mom made very quick and bland and boring food. Dan's dad never used spice, and so Dan never learned how to make food taste good. Dan also supports his wife's want to buy out often, as he says that it saves on the mess. Sharon continued to go along with her days, thinking that she hated cooking and that she didn't want to do it for various reasons. The youngest son of Sharon and Dan, however, would repeatedly get sick. He was hospitalized with pneumonia 3 times in 1 year. Sharon found that taking time off to care for him and seeing him so open to sickness made her willing to change how she saw and used food. She became educated on the kinds of meals that supply her son and her family with the nutrients that they need to be physically strong and fight sickness. She began eating and feeding her family plant-based meals that are filled with vegetables, fruits, whole grains, spices, superfoods, and legumes. She learned how to stock her pantry with items she could use every single day. She learned how to look on food as a way to serve and to love and to bless her family with the gift of health. She started pouring her love for her son into her meals, and it worked. Her son increasingly got healthier and stronger, and he also found a love for food, and he started cooking alongside his mom in the kitchen. They learned of the simplicity of nutrients and the joy of cooking together. Her husband and other son were also grateful to be the recipients of good and new food, and they began to find their taste buds changed and evolved as time went on. This parable is just one example of how changing how we think about food and how we use food can literally change our lives. So the reason why I'm telling this story is because if we choose to eat whole and healthy food, we soon can see the difference that it makes in how we feel and in how much energy we have. And it will also prevent sickness and negative health conditions such as diabetes or obesity, possibly from even happening in the first place. So I hope that throughout this webinar you become increasingly convinced that eating whole and healthy foods is what you want and what you must do for you and for your family going forward. So then there's one question that we can all contemplate from today on, and it's, what do I value? Alice Waters, an American chef, has a really famous quote. She says, "The decisions you make are a choice of values that reflect your life in every way." And so a lot of the time we don't realize that we might be valuing unhealthy food, which contributes to sickness, and that's not what we want to value anymore. And so instead we can choose to value health and the well-being of our entire family and ourselves. And so next, so what are the attitudes that are necessary for a whole and healthy kitchen? So these 4 basic attitudes right here. The very first one is open-mindedness and adventurous. You want to be open to being more adventurous with your food choices. You literally have to forgo the idea of this is what you like and this is what you don't like, or this is what your kids like or don't like, and experiment and try new things. A lot of the time when we're younger, we will eat something that maybe wasn't prepared in the greatest way, and so it didn't taste very good. And so we made the conclusion, I don't like this food. And until we change our minds in regards to what we think we like, we're not going to eat it. So an example is for me when I was younger, I remember spending an hour, it felt like a decade, but it felt like a really long time sitting at the kitchen table where I was forced to eat my peas before I left the table. But I hated peas, like despised peas. But then once I had Ella and realized how easy peas were to prepare, I really wanted her to have them. And so I started cooking them in a way that included coconut oil and Himalayan pink salts, and I found that peas are now my favorite thing ever. I literally can eat an entire bowl. And yes, I'm older, and yes, my taste buds have evolved, but my thinking has changed around food. And once I learned how to prepare food differently, the most complex vegetables that we used to think we didn't like at all can become so delicious. And this is what I want for everyone, to become open-minded and adventurous in the types of foods you're willing to try. So the next one here is learning. We can have an attitude of I am learning in the kitchen, and actually doing so is extremely imperative. Because you will not all of a sudden find it super easy to be in the kitchen and find a workflow. You're not all of a sudden going to be able to make beautiful meals that look so gorgeous like they do on Instagram. But you will learn how to take simple ingredients with simple cooking methods and put them together in a way that makes delicious and nutritious food. And that's what we want, delicious foods that we all want to eat it, right? So there are definitely ways to enjoy the learning process more. For me, I put on my favorite music. I literally blast it and will sing and dance as I cook. I also listen to an audiobook or a podcast. And another big one is I like to take out all of my ingredients and set them on the counter so that I'm ready to cook beforehand. All of this helps me to trust the process and to kind of step back and enjoy it while I'm doing it instead of it being so difficult. And so as we learn a correct flow of how to work within our kitchen, learning becomes easier, and we will naturally and automatically begin to love the cooking process, which is the ultimate goal. So the next one, patience, my friends. You must be patient with your process of learning. And if you are patient, you can have that calm demeanor instead of frantic and stressed. And so, since we are learning and we must be patient with ourselves, that also means that not to give yourself a hard time when you make a mistake. You might burn something, you might miss an ingredient, you might add a little bit too much spice here and there, but that's part of learning. And every single time you make a mistake, you learn something. So mistakes are totally okay. It doesn't mean you have to throw it out the window and you've done something wrong. You just have something new to learn here. And that's what we're doing. We're learning a new skill. And learning a new skill takes time, like with anything. Like if we're walking, or rather when our kids learn to walk and learn to talk, at first they're not good at all. They're going to fall all over the place, but we want to encourage them to keep doing it. And a lot of this is like, I think you all might know Julia Child. She is a famous French chef that brought home cooking to America, and she has this idea of having a what the hell attitude. Literally like, what the heck, let me just throw something in there. So if you don't have sweet potatoes, throw in carrots, what the heck. If you don't have oregano, throw in thyme. If you don't have onions, throw in garlic. You are literally learning to step outside the box, outside the comfort zone that you grew up in, and to literally be like, you know what, maybe it's okay for me to try something new here. And each and every single meal, you can learn to be patient with reading the recipe, be patient with planning your meals, be patient with trying the recipe, and be patient with you and your family's ever-changing needs and taste buds. So the last one, practice. Okay, it might sound a little bit cliche, but honestly, practice. Because like with any skill, practice makes perfect. And so you must be willing to take the time to be in the kitchen. And there's definitely specific steps that you can take to help the whole cooking in the kitchen process be easier. And that's why I've made things like the blog 10 steps for a whole and healthy kitchen on my website. And everything I do, I try to make it as practical as possible so that people can feel inspired to want to practice and put in the time and effort it takes to learn something like this. And the more that you do practice, the easier it gets, the more confident you will feel, the more comfortable you will feel, and the more natural it will be for you to be in the kitchen. So I want you to embody these 4 principles. I literally want you to remember them throughout your days so that you can be kind to yourself and take that calm state of mind into your kitchen and want to be creative and adventurous in what it is that you do and what you eat. And soon enough, you will have a whole and healthy kitchen, my friends. So now we're going to get a little bit into the educational, deeper components here. So what are the 3 ideas that help to apply these positive attitudes? So the first one for me is the idea of healthy food choices. We want to make healthy food choices. Now, why? It is because we want to decrease free radicals and clear out those free radicals, which prevents against disease. And we also want to increase antioxidants, which helps us to fight those free radicals and any disease that might be lingering to hold in our bodies. And so, first of all, according to Harold McGee, who is the author of the textbook on food and cooking, The Science and the Lore of the Kitchen, he says that free radicals are very unstable chemicals that react with and damage our own complex and delicate machinery. And let's just read this again. They are very unstable chemicals that react with and damage our own complex and delicate chemical machinery, i.e., the body. So these free radicals are literally found in the air we breathe. They are sprayed on our food. They come from the ozone. They come from industrial chemicals. They come from cigarette smoke. And literally, they are all over planet Earth. So simply by living on the planet, we have to deal with the dispelling of these free radicals. And so a way I like to look at this is that a free radical is caused by oxidative damage. So literally like breathing in the air in our environment can cause free radicals. And so what happens is a free radical is an unpaired electron. So it's literally when an electron splits off from other electrons and is on its own. It's literally like separated by itself. And then all of these separate electrons then join up together, and that's how it creates masses like tumors and cancers in the body. And so that's kind of metaphysical if you think about it, that you have a separation from the whole, and then the separation is what causes the sickness. This is what allows the body to get sick and to be susceptible to sickness. And so another quote from the amazing Mr. McGee is that free radicals affect different parts of the cell and different organs of the body. So free radicals make oxidative damage to cell's DNA, which can cause that cell to multiply uncontrollably and grow into a tumor or cancer, like I had just said. But by eating food that is filled with antioxidants, we stack the body with nutrients and what it needs to prevent the oxidative damage, and thus prevent many cancers and tumors and sickness and obesity from rising in the body to begin with. So Harold McGee also explains why we should have antioxidants as much as possible and as often as possible. He says that all fruits and vegetables contain some form and different forms of antioxidants, all of which that when paired together work as a whole to help us to be and remain healthy. We need a continuous and abundant supply of antioxidants to maintain our good health. And finally, Mr. McGee says, today's provisional nutritional wisdom goes like this. Okay, let's listen. Fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices supply us with many different beneficial substances. Within an otherwise adequate diet, we should eat as much of them as we can and in as great variety as we can. So, not only will eating whole and healthy food help you to feel better and have more energy, lose weight, and feel confident by learning the skill of cooking in the kitchen, but you are also preventing against sickness and preparing the next generation or children who are coming behind us to actively work towards health and away from sickness with every single food choice that they make. Now, if this isn't important, I don't know what is. But that's why I try and educate on all of the different types of fruits and vegetables that are available to us so that we can stack our bodies with an assortment and plethora of these amazing, amazing health activating ingredients so that we can also have the health activating agents inside our own bodies to prevent from every kind of sickness that we can think of. And so, my friends, the second one here is planning ahead thinking things through, and preparation. I included them all together because it's part of a workflow in the kitchen. So we'll break down it a little bit here. So yes, of course, life is ridiculously busy, just like we heard in the story of Sharon at the beginning. There's so many things to do, so many things to take care of. So a way that we don't get bogged down by adding another thing to our list like cooking is by preparing ahead and planning ahead and thinking things through. And so a way for me that I plan ahead is I think about what I'm going to make for the next week. I literally have a whiteboard that I got from the dollar store that has magnets on the back and it sticks on my fridge. And I think about the main dinners that I want to have for the next week, and I write them on the whiteboard. I then write down the ingredients that I need to make those meals and write it on a shopping list. And then when I go out and buy my shopping ingredients, which is generally on a Tuesday because that's when the discounts are at my local grocery store, then generally what I do is I have a packed up pantry and I have a packed up fridge, and now I literally could just go in there and use what I need. It avoids going to the grocery store many times and spending extra money. Now I'm prepared. So another thing that I also like to do to help this process is to prepare the night before. So when I'm about to go to bed, I literally write on a little sheet of paper, put it on my stove, and I list out the 3 things I'm going to eat the next day: breakfast, lunches, and dinners. This way, if I need to soak any beans or any lentils, I can do so. If I want to make my caramelized onions ahead of time, I can do so. I also find that what I do here is I make it a little bit more enjoyable for myself. So I turn on some music, or I put on an audiobook, or I listen to a podcast, and I literally let the time pass for me. And this preparing time before bed is maximum 30 minutes. I mean, 30 minutes if I'm doing caramelized onions, sure, but it can be 2 minutes by just writing out what I'm going to do the day before. But doing this, and maybe even taking out some of your ingredients and putting them on the counter, this will allow you to be committed to following through with what you said you were going to eat the day before. And so it really makes a massive difference. You can chop your vegetables, put them in a container, store them in the fridge, and then you literally have ready to go stuff for the next day and for the week ahead. And it's amazing, and it literally saves time and money in the long run. And so the last point here, my beautiful friends, is that many times we are taught that cooking is a chore, right? It gets lumped in with bathroom duties and cleaning the floor duties, but when we do that, we literally forget about the divineness of cooking itself. And I say that it is divine because cooking is a service, right? You are serving your family. You're serving yourself. And when we become mothers especially, we learn that we no longer can just grab the quickest option for ourselves, but we must prepare for our little ones and have food available for them when that 4 o'clock hunger mood kicks in. This extra thinking about meals forces us to think about what we're going to eat for ourselves. And yet if we remember that we can learn what we need to in regards to the kitchen and let cooking become a divine act of service, then you will be surprised in the shift from your thinking. It will go from, what am I going to eat? I'm hungry, to, this is a joy to be making these meals that I planned and prepared the night before. You are choosing to make whole and healthy food because you love your family and because you're learning to love yourself. And in doing this act of love, you are demonstrating a good relationship with food so that your kids can learn that and take those lessons into their adulthood. So you are cooking for love's sake because you want to and not because you have to. So important. Next. So what are those blocks to a positive attitude? Ants. What are ants? Automatic, negative thinking. Okay, say it with me. Automatic, negative thinking. These ants keep us blind to the actual joy that we can have while cooking. And ants are taught to us. They're literally passed down from our parents, from our school, from our media, from our world at large. And it's actually like a lack of education about nutrients and about food preparation as a whole. But once we realize that we weren't taught and we don't know, we can let ourselves off the hook. And then we can start canceling out these ants because we realize they don't help contribute to the goal of a whole and healthy kitchen. And so the first thing that we must do is become aware of the ants that are crawling around in our head. It might be different from everyone. It might say, I hate cooking. It might say, I'm not good at cooking. It might say, cooking's too messy. It takes too much time. I don't want to do it. All of these are ants that contribute to the breakdown of actually doing the action of cooking. So then, if we want to maybe ask ourselves, since, cooking, like our negative thoughts and feelings about cooking extend from early childhood memories, we need to ask ourselves these questions. Maybe you can write these down if you want. It says, what was my overall experience with food as a kid? Start thinking about that. What was my overall experience with food as a kid? Did your parents lack spice and therefore served up bland meat or vegetables that were so boring that you could not handle it? Maybe your parents were so busy that you could eat on TV stands with quick in the microwave and in the oven meals. Or maybe there was just an overwhelming lack of appreciation or knowledge of healthy food and cooking processes. Whatever it is, these memories can persist long into adulthood, and they produce feelings of dislike and failure. These negative feelings can affect later relationships with food, from the lack of confidence in the ability to follow a recipe to a low interest in teaching one's own children how to cook. These childhood memories that we subconsciously hold on to then become our excuses for not cooking. But like I said before, once we are aware of them, we can change them. So now we can't not be aware of them because we've been taught that we have these ants crawling around our head. So the next step here is, what are some new thoughts that we can affirm to ourselves in place of these ants? So this is what we're going to see. So here's some new thoughts to replace the ants. And so if we agree to the idea that we are responsible for what we think, especially considering like who else is going to be in control of our mind and our thinking, then we can gain conscious awareness that this is what I'm thinking and actively choose to change it. So when you notice these ants in your head, my friends, literally say stop. This is what I've done many times. You stop that train of thought and you cancel it out. And instead you replace it with something that is more in alignment with what you want to feel and with your goals. And so I literally do this. Stop to the thoughts. And then I choose another thought. So here are some thoughts that we can choose instead. I like to cook. I like to cook. Or if anything, I'm learning to like to cook. Okay, even something as simple as that can help shift us from I hate cooking to I like to cook. The next one is I want to do only what is helpful and loving for me and my family. The end, I only want to do what is most helpful and loving for me and my family. And from what we learned before, eating whole and healthy food is most helpful and loving for the family. So this is something that we really want to do. We can also see the kitchen as a place to play and experiment, and that it's not a chore. It's in the realm of play and experiment, not a chore. And this is why we can bring children into the cooking, because we can help them to play and experiment in the kitchen along with us. The next is I choose thoughts and foods that support health and wholeness. Yes! This is why we cancel out the ants that don't support health and wholeness, because what we want is to be healthy and whole. And then next, I choose a positive attitude and see with fresh new eyes. And it's true. The more we choose to have a positive attitude in the kitchen, the more we will look upon things differently, see food differently, have a relationship with food that changes, and we'll start to heal on all levels of our being through this process. So my friends, perhaps you want to write these out. Perhaps you want to add your own thoughts to them. Perhaps you want to add them to your fridge so you can look at them every day. But either way, you are learning to train your mind so that your mind works for you instead of against you. And so let's get to the next one here. This is a big one, that if we want to be committed to whole and healthy eating, we must hold ourselves accountable. And sometimes it's hard to hold ourselves accountable, especially when we've been so conditioned with past ways of thinking about food and about ourselves. So this is why we need to sometimes reach out to each other. We can have accountability partners being our friends or our mate, our husband or our wife. It can also be us here at Whole and Healthy Kitchen. I know for me, like, I personally want to support you into reaching your goals and do everything I can to help you. So I'm available. Like, contact me anytime, email me anytime. Also join us on this Facebook group here. It is private and it'll be just for us so we can share our stories and experiences. I'm also going to be having the back end of Whole and Healthy Kitchen to be a private meeting space for all of us to really commune and be together. So that's coming up here shortly. And so I really just want us to encourage each other and support each other and be each other's accountability partner to stay on this path to eating whole and healthy. We want to see each other whole and healthy, and we want to be whole and healthy. And so next, this is a recap of what we have learned. We learned why we want to eat whole and healthy. We learned the attitude we need for a whole and healthy kitchen. We learned what we can do to have a positive attitude in the kitchen. We learned what ants are, how to cancel ants out, and the importance of accountability. And last, my friends, I am so grateful for you. Like, thank you for being here. I feel like gratitude is an important part of this journey, because the more grateful we are, the more great things we will bring into our life. So be grateful for what you want. Be grateful for what you have, and be grateful for what you are. And the more you return to these practical lessons that I've given you today, and the more you apply them to the best of your ability and stay in touch with our community and with that goal of being whole and healthy, you're going to see the changes. You're going to see the changes in your body, in your mind, in your family, in your workflow. And I am so grateful to be part of that. So thank you for opening up your heart and your space and your time to me and with me. And I look forward to all that is to come. So thank you.